say we're over 60. And, that'd be nice, but we look relatively young. But I would like to take us into the realm of today's time with COVID-19 environment, just to let you know. He comes from a writing background. My mother was a writer, and then my husband was, and I did publish some books, and I inherited my companies. My mother and her mother worked for printing, publishing, but textbook types. And I'm not very technical, although I worked in engineering, and I had to learn how to do course and scope and manuals and writing for the government. I read a lot more manuals than I actually worked on, but I feel like there's something here we can all do together now. And David has been doing it for quite some time. So I thought we'd go ahead and see how best David can help all of us. If you want to join us in social media, that's always free on Facebook and LinkedIn, where David and I met. But David, go ahead. Now, your LinkedIn, is yours under David L Rivera or David Rivera, or is it Editorial Documents, your company name? How do you list on both of them, Facebook and LinkedIn? Let's get that established.
Well, Facebook, I have kept primarily for family and friends. I had some writing friends because, again, there's a large community of people on Facebook, and I had a few of them who were writers, and they just bombarded everybody with, buy my books, buy my books, buy my books. And I thought, this really isn't what I want to have happen on my Facebook. So there are some that are still, friends only because it's not, oh, hey, I wrote a new book, buy it. They actually share some of their personality, and they're more of a friend, and it's sort of a normal chat, like you would sit down with somebody and say, oh, here's what I'm doing. Facebook, not so much. LinkedIn is where, being that professional community, I've started making contacts. I've been on LinkedIn since 2006, and LinkedIn had a major overhaul where they redid basically their groups and things of that nature, and that was in 2015. And it wasn't really until 2017 that, it occurred to me, I've been on here and I really haven't made use of it. It's a terrific resource. So I went from about 100 or so connections, and right now I'm sitting at 11,934 connections. So I sat down, did my homework, and started making connections, and it has started to pay off tremendously in that regard, where people come to me, they want to know what I do, how I do it, and there are those who say, oh, can you do this for me? And the answer is typically yes. But every once in a while, there's a few no's that sneak in there, just because sometimes somebody gets a little silly about what they want to have done, and I'm going, I don't think so.
Well, now I've noticed some of your clients on your domain. I grew up with the internet like most people did, but fortunately for me, I was working for the government, so I got to watch it grow from the government over to Net Solutions, which I think you and I talked about, and then of course Ray Kurzweil went from DARPA into Google, and he's the big guy that we used to watch on Ed Sullivan, but Ray Kurzweil has been a big instrumental help with a lot of people and changing the way we use Google, including he's written some ways to make us answer each other without having to type so many words, which I noticed with you the other day, even on LinkedIn. So it's getting to be a cool thing. So as the internet and the cyberspace community grows, I do feel like if you're going to own a business, you should own a domain, or at least have a home for your business, we used to call, and that's called, you buy your domain, and you can get it for a year, 10, 25 years. Usually most people buy them a year, maybe 2, maybe 3. We like to see you do it 5, but I used one, TJ Morris for media, for 5 years and didn't really use it because I didn't like the word media. Now I wished I hadn't given it up like an idiot because it's still my TJ Morris name, and now some porno group or something has it over in China. So I learned my lesson only recently, folks. If you've got a name that's involved with your business, don't give it up. So you've had the same name, Industrial Documents. Now, what made you choose that back in the day? From bowling, I think you went back to school to learn to do technical writing. But what made you choose that name, and explain it? So is it working for you, or do you have to explain it like with me? Because when I saw Industrial Documents, I immediately went back to my government, the pictures in my mind and writing tech manuals. But just give us an idea of why you chose that and how it's worked for you, if you don't mind.
Well, again, the industrial side is that, yes, because I work industrially at that point in time doing just that, technical documentation. So it seemed a good marriage because that's what I was doing primarily. And then, of course, as the market changed, I started doing more fiction, more nonfiction that isn't always necessarily a technical manual, where I sometimes would have to team up with somebody like a graphics guy who does all the graphics. In other words, you see these fancy pictures of, a car that's literally taken apart piece by piece type of thing, as, we sometimes see. So it depends upon what they were doing and how they were doing it that, I sometimes would rely on, shall I say, the more graphically oriented people who, in technical writing and editing, take pictures and expand them, take them apart, whatever. And my job would oftentimes be having to deal with explaining the technical terminology oftentimes, how to write procedures and things of that nature. So Industrial Documents seemed a good marriage. And, of course, the end side of, documents is pretty self-explanatory.
Well, now that you're home working all the time, have you considered using another type of domain name? Because I know you do domains, and I do too. I was talking to you about SSLs too that were supplied, but, I do a reseller. But, what I do, we can get into putting our resources together to help people in the future, I hope, as a professional organization from home, because I believe that that's only going to grow. We can talk about that today because I've got the topic is writing money at home business, or maybe I'll put writing money a home business. But I don't know, you know a lot of tricks of the trade, but writing money, it's not like we're counterfeiters, folks. I wanted to get something up there that was like to catch your view, because I'm so I have a lot of followers in niche genres, which I definitely recommend if you're into, hobbies or ancient culture, New Thought teachings, and I'm into metaphysics and have a lot of those friends. But also, this should bring in, David, people, like you said, you don't want just only book writers that just want to, they've written their book, buy my book, because I did have a barrage of those back about 2005 and 6, and they finally calmed down. But I learned, because of the niche genres I were in, that people like to discuss ancient cultures or the History Channel or the documentaries, or just come on the show and talk story with me about various topics. So this is hard for me today doing self-help only. So I'm grasping for your help here. Writing money at home, how would people think of you if we put you in this professional association? I've got you over on a page called Live Talk Shows right now, because you're my first. Okay. So literally, folks, I've been doing this 8 years, but I'm really grasping for help here, because I'm not used to doing a self-help show in a different place at Blog Talk Radio. So self-help and how you make money at home as a business. But, David, you're obviously not starving to death. So and I know that everything's changed, but tell us, how would people write? Because most of us have learned with computers, it comes loaded, usually with Windows 10 nowadays, and I use Androids because I was a Type Jockey. But a lot of people, my relatives and my grandchildren, a lot of them like Apples. But then when I used to have my own retail store and sold phones, I learned a lot of people would come back and trade in their Apples for an Android, and it was just Android seemed easier to use. But a lot of people in graphic design, they want Apples. So I don't know what all you know or how you want to get into this, but I'm going to let you figure out how to make money and with what. So go for it. Tell us what you think.
Well, as far as cell phones are concerned, I think it's a matter in part of what seems to fit individuals. Like you say, some people like Apples, others like Androids. I particular tend to enjoy and use the Android because, yes, I do find it to be easier and oftentimes quicker for me to do most things on there. But I primarily use a computer in my work. You know, my cell phone is just that. For the most part, it's a phone more so than anything else. I don't, other than I keep photographs on it from time to time where I take something that, oh, that's interesting. I can use that on a project and, snap a picture or two or three, and I've got what I need, and it's, just as easy then to download it to my computer. But for the most part, I was in the process of taking everything off one of my computers, which was running Windows 7, because it's no longer being supported by Windows. So I was moving everything over to my other computer, which was an 8 or 8.1, whatever. When the house fire decided to help me in a hurry and melted both my computers, so I had nothing. So now I'm being forced into having to learn Windows 10 in a heartbeat, literally overnight. Fortunately, it's not too far different from, the 7 or the 8, but it's got newer features and other things that I just haven't found yet. So I'm still growing into my Windows 10.
Well, yeah, things have changed a lot, and now they're getting where the phones are an extension of ourselves. And the people that are running their businesses, I've watched them for years run it from their phones. And now that I'm going back into business to help other people basically with their own businesses from home and creating a professional association of people I can trust to refer business to, it's daunting to say the least because so much has changed, and it seems like these advertisers, even on my phone, I'm trying to figure out how to protect and download. But, I've got it protected on my computers pretty much, and Google's pretty good about not messing with you too much. But let's start with, for me, have a laptop and a cell phone, and then they want to grow their business. Now, have you have made a living? You want to mention any kind of jobs you've had from your home, or what kind of, did you advertise in the local newspaper to get started? Let's get down to, people that have a laptop and a cell phone maybe at home. I work with musicians and authors and consultants and event planners. Very few that are working at a paid job. Most of these people are already at home or entrepreneurs or over 65, or they just want part-time money. But what kind of client do you get from your home in Newport News?
I get a wide variety of clients. Most of them, again, come from just about every walk and direction, if you will, as far as, how do I do this or how do I do that? And the questions really come from each individual. And the first thing that I tell any of them, if they're a writer, the first thing they really have to know is what are you going to do? Are you going to self-publish anymore, or are you still going to go with a traditional book publisher? And from there, depending upon which answer they give me, well, I'll give them what information they need to know. But in today's market anymore, when it deals with writing in particular, you have to still get your story, your book, professionally edited. from somebody who does editing for a living. Now, typically,